So projection, what is projection? Projection is basically the psychological phenomenon. It's actually a defense mechanism that where individuals will take different inner criticisms, things that they've internalized along the way, and project them out onto other people or even groups of people and assume that those people are thinking those critical thoughts or those judgments about them. And so we see this oftentimes. This is probably one of the main driving forces of social anxiety. So a person, say they go to a party and they have a lot of critical thoughts about themselves. You know, they've internalized things from their parents or from past relationships. That maybe they've been told they're overweight or they're not funny or they're not interesting or whatever. And they think these things about themselves on a subconscious level. They're constantly kind of berating themselves about these things. So they walk into this group and all of a sudden they start to project these criticisms out onto the group. Or they walk into a conversation with another person and they start to project that inner criticism onto the person that they're talking to, assuming that the person is having these very critical negative thoughts about them. So what does that do? It just causes them to become very anxious. And it might actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where they start to behave in ways that make that person think negatively of them, which just, actually reinforces their belief that the person's judging them or being critical of them or rejecting them. So what do we do about projection? First of all, we need to be aware of what our inner critical thoughts are, what our tendencies are to project. How have we been traumatized in the past? What have we internalized along the way? And then be on the lookout for this, because we do it automatically and habitually without even thinking about it. So if you catch yourself in a conversation or in an interaction with another person, and you start to have a fear that that person's being critical of you in a certain way or judging you in a certain way, it's really important to just pause and ask yourself a simple question. What evidence do I have that this person is having that thought about me? Have they said anything? Have they done anything to communicate that to me? 99% of the time, you're going to probably realize that they haven't done anything or they haven't said anything. And when you realize that, then you know, okay, this isn't really coming from them, is it? It's coming from me. This thought originated in my mind, and then it somehow traveled across the room and got put on them. And now I'm not even interacting with them. I'm interacting with some critic or some judge. That's not going to help me to have a good conversation right now. So that will help to start to deconstruct or break down this projective process. And once we pull that off of them, then we can actually have a better quality interaction, which will lead to better relationships and just a better quality of life overall. So now 90% of the time, you're probably going to, after you ask yourself, is there any evidence to support this fear or this perception that I'm being judged, you're going to find that there's not. That it's just a projection. And when that happens, it's important to just own what happened, not verbally to them, but just recognize internally that, okay, I was just putting my own judgment, my own self-criticism onto that person, and assume that they're not having this sort of negative perception of you, and start, take a deep breath and just enjoy having an interaction with a non-judgmental, non-critical person. In the rare occasions where it really wasn't projection, that there really was evidence that they're judging you, maybe they said something or they did something, then you might want to reevaluate if that's somebody you want to be interacting with or you want to have in your life, because they might just be perpetuating your own baggage that you're already working to overcome. So, it's a case-by-case thing, but you have to ask yourself, is this really somebody that I want to continue having a relationship with?